What's up, guys? This is Boondocks, and right now I'm showing off how Ember can easily push 60 minutes, killing a shit ton of infested on Eris. This is Eris Dark Sector, and I'm quickly approaching the 60-minute mark, and basically all I'm doing is using Naramon. I have died twice, which is sad because it made me drop my combo. The first one was real devastating because I had my combo up to almost 2,000, I think, when I dropped it. But not that big a deal, just because of the sheer volume of enemies. I'm able to rack up my combo relatively quick again. The second time I died, it was because I was running over to get a one of these guys. And then I dropped my invisibility just like half a second before I hit a target, and within that half a second, he was able to cock back and hit me. The first time, I don't actually know why I died. It kind of like exploded. Sort of like fucking spontaneous human combustion, or spontaneous frame combustion, I guess. It was a little annoying. But basically, what I'm showing here is why I feel that Ember is so fucking amazing, and that's because, well, you're able to just get these crazy damage multipliers off against, like, this is an Eximus, level 100 Ancient Eximus, and because of me being able to just spread my accelerant on them, I'm able to burn through them a lot quicker than you think you should. Couple that with the Naramon focus tree, and I'm essentially untouched against these infested because they can't fucking see me. And then any type of damage that I do take, I can just heal up again through a quick life strike. So because of that, I feel that Ember is probably one of the best frames as far as being melee is concerned. And that really just comes down to the fact that her fire can control surrounding enemies and make it so that even when you're not invisible, they're panicking, and it sets them up for taking more damage. Coupled with, like I said, the accelerant, if you have Molten Strike on your melee weapon, you're going to do a considerable amount of damage, especially once you start getting the high combo count. And because of that, I would definitely recommend taking body count coupled with blood rush. And I'm going to show off my build that I currently have for Ember here in a second. But first, let's see how many Nerodes I got. 4. Not too bad, not too bad. I mean, I would definitely like more than 4, but oh well. I also got the nanospores, so that way, worst case scenario, I can make a couple of Nerodes as well. Those are so fucking hard to farm up, though. I hate it. Okay, let's take a quick look at this build. So, first of all, the reason why I feel that she's really good is because she's just going to do so much AoE damage and take out a lot of those little bullshit enemies that come trying to run up to you. And you're going to do this through her 4th ability, World on Fire. So, World on Fire is going to do what it says. It's going to set the world ablaze and enemies are going to burn. This is a channeled ability, so it's going to drain 0.75 of your energy per second. But it's going to proc little bursts of fire underneath the enemy's feet, doing an initial spike of damage, and then the way I currently have it set up, it's at a 63% chance of setting them on fire. When they're on fire, they're both panicking and burning. So they're going to have a damage over time on them, plus the panic means they're not attacking you. So that, coupled with the invisibility, makes it so that you almost never get hit, except for like the AoE poison against the infested, in which case all you need is a life strike to heal your way back up to full. As far as the other abilities are concerned, Fireball's decent as far as a ranged ability goes. You're going to shoot out a Fireball. It's going to do a fair amount of damage, but not really my cup of tea. Accelerant, on the other hand, this is pretty amazing. You're going to stun enemies over a considerably large range, and in addition, put on a damage multiplier. This damage multiplier only works for fire damage, so anything that you have a heat proc on, or any of Ember's other abilities, are going to do 4.5 times the damage, which is pretty damn nice, especially when you consider an accelerant, and then the damage proc from your World on Fire. That's what, close to 3,000 damage per proc, that's not too bad. Fire Blast, this is going to cause a giant wave to spread out from you, similar to how the Grineer Scorcher enemies attack, except it won't knock down enemies, unfortunately. But what it will do is do an initial wave of damage, which is decent for clearing out smaller enemies that maybe your World on Fire hasn't gotten to yet, and it'll also leave a ring of fire. Now, this can be useful sometimes against the infested, but I personally find that the energy investment into using Fire Blast isn't worth it, especially considering I don't use flow on my Ember because I'd rather leave that mod spot up for something else. So let's show those mods. So first of all, I'm going to try to get as much power strength as possible without negatively affecting my energy, which is why I'm going to use my Transient Fortitude and Intensify. These are going to bring me up to the 180, which is definitely pretty nice. I'm then going to use the Continuity and Constitution. Constitution's by far one of my favorite mods in the game because if you fuck up and get knocked down, well, this is going to get you back up again and it can save your life. Especially when you're trying to keep your combo counter going or your invisibility going. If you get knocked down and you get knocked down too far away from enemies and you drop your invisibility or combo counter, you can suffer some pretty bad repercussions. Then I'm going to use Streamline and Fleeting Expertise just to increase my efficiency as much as possible. The cap is 175, which unfortunately I'm actually over right now. What I would actually want to do is have a different Fleeting Expertise on. Basically, I'd want a Fleeting Expertise that wasn't powered up to plus 60% efficiency, negative 60% duration, and instead I'd want something around the 40 or 50 range. Because right now I'm at 190, plus 190. But if this was at 40, I'd be at plus 170, so I'd lose a little bit of efficiency, but it wouldn't be that bad. At 180, that would bring me up to the cap of 175, and you can kind of mix and match, maybe a slightly weakened Streamline, try to get as much capacity as possible to maybe open up your Eximilus spot. Finally, I'm going to throw on a Stretch just to be able to hit enemies, specifically the weaker ones, further away, so that way, especially in the early stages of a survival when the enemies aren't as strong as the level 100 plus like I was just killing, this will let you hit them further away and probably even finish them off. I'm then going to throw on a Redirection. Now, this can go either way. The reason I have a Redirection on is because Ember's base shields are 375 versus the 300 health, but tossing on a Vitality is totally worth it as well, especially if you're going to be using a Life Strike like I am. So in all honesty, Vitality is probably the smarter way to go, as you can Life Strike and guarantee full health almost immediately. Finally, I'm going to be using my Steel Charge mod, just so that way I get the bonus of melee damage, because I'm actually going to be using Ember as a melee frame. That can also do AoE damage, totally aside from what you're currently doing. Like, you activate World on Fire, and you can kind of ignore it. It's kind of an easy gameplay. There is one thing that you could do to change this up, and that's toss on a Firequake instead of a Stretch. And while this won't let you hit enemies as far away, this will knock down any enemies that get hit by World on Fire. So this is a little bit more control, and it's a little bit more supportive if you're in a team-based environment. One quick side note is the base form of Ember doesn't have the Madurai or V-type polarities. Instead, she has 2 Dash or Naramon-type polarities. So you might have to mix and match and change everything up unless you want to just forma a slot. If you can forma, definitely go with the Madurai or V polarity, so that way you can toss on your Transient Fortitude and get a big discount, or even another Naramon just to discount Constitution, because Constitution's actually 13 energy drain, but I would definitely always go for Madurai. As far as weapons are concerned, I like to bring an Ignis with me just for the start of levels. This is a really good wave clearing weapon, as it's just going to instantly burn down pretty much everything up to about level 45, especially if you toss Accelerant on them. And the way I do this, since I am going to be using Accelerant, is I'm going to use as many fire mods as possible. So Hellfire, Thermite rounds, and Wildfire are all going to add at least 60% increased heat damage. Then I'm going to use a Firestorm to kind of increase the spread of my Flamethrower, as well as Sinister Reach, just to give it a little bit of extra range, though obviously this isn't much because it's only level 1, as I've only used 3 form on this weapon. As far as last things are concerned, I'm going to use Serration and Split Chamber because those are relatively standard. And then Heavy Caliber is actually a buff on both sides. Not only will it do the increased percent damage, but it'll also, that negative 40% accuracy causes your flamethrower spread to increase even more. So when you combine this with Firestorm, you're going to be hitting more targets more often. An interesting thing about the Ignis as well is it has an inherent punch-through ability. And even though the status percent chance isn't the greatest per se, I mean, it's still decent at 40% with only 1 status mod on. The fact is, the Ignis is going to fire so fast that enemies are almost guaranteed to get lit on fire. And it also has a pretty big clip and can hold a decent amount of ammo in reserve as well. It's all around a pretty good weapon that really shines on Ember. Then I'm going to take some sort of stopping power weapon. This is mostly just in case I'm going to be going up against a capture mission or something where enemies might have a overshield that the Ignis won't burn through right away. Well, the Vaker Marlock or Lex Prime or just standard Lex, you can power that up enough to just have a decent amount of stopping power for single targets, put them on their ass, and continue on. Finally, choose whatever melee weapon really suits you. I'm using the Broken War mostly because, well, it's the only thing that I currently have that's lensed, and I want to get as much extra Naramon as I can while I'm still trying to farm it up. So the main thing that makes this suitable for the long runs and maintaining your constant invisibility through Naramon, assuming you have it up to the 10-second duration on your invisibility off of crits, is the Blood Rush body count combo. So basically what Blood Rush does is as your combo multiplier goes up, you're going to get an increase to your total crit chance. What this means is with a weapon of 24% crit chance after my other crit mod of True Steel, with 24% on it, once I get to about even 1.5 or 2, I can't remember and I apologize, but once I just get a couple of combos going, I'm going to be at 100% guaranteed crits. After enough time, like before I died and actually started recording, I was at the 2K. As far as my combo counter was concerned, I was getting constant red crits, a lot of the times for upwards of 100,000 damage, and it gets kind of ridiculous thanks to the Blood Rush mod. And the body count adds on that extra 12 seconds, and that lets you move from one area to the next. And the nice thing about this is, once you have your invisibility leveled up to the 10-second mark, you kind of have a warning like, oh shit, I need to get that hit for the crit, otherwise I'm going to lose my counter, just because they line up relatively close enough. So this is very broad that I'm trying to talk about, not just on the Broken War. You will probably also want to have the Berserker, so that way you're going to have pretty much max attack speed because you're going to be doing crits constantly. So yeah, you're going to have a shit ton of attack speed. Life Strike, just in case you do lose a little bit of health, especially against Infested, because they like to put up the poison and environmental effects that'll drain a little bit of your health. You can use Life Strike to gain that all back. Then I'm going to use Pressure Point because 120 melee damage, right? And finally, Molten Impact. Now, there are other weapons that I could highly recommend for this. If you're going to go up against Infested, I would recommend using maybe the Galantine, because this weapon will shred through entire waves of enemies and kill them very quickly, coupled with the fact that it is primarily slash damage. By primarily, I mean almost entirely slash damage. The one issue with this is, since it is a grand sword or large sword, you're going to need the Tempo Royale mod, which is very rare, and people like to sell it for almost 200 platinum at times. The other major opinions that I could give would be the Orthos or Orthos Prime. This has ridiculous reach, does mostly slash damage as well, but it's not as good of a crit machine, but once you start counting for the fact that you're going to be using body count and blood rush, that doesn't matter. Now, if you want the true crit machine in the game, what I would definitely recommend would be the dual cleavers, or if you have them, which I don't, the Prisma dual cleavers. Now, if you look here, I'm currently at a 40% critical chance and a 5.7 critical multiplier. That's going to do some ridiculous damage once you start having your blood rush do red crits. And since you already have such a huge critical crit chance to begin with on the dual cleavers, you're going to hit red crit territory almost immediately. The reason I don't use the dual cleavers personally is the stance. I'm just not a fan of the stance. And that's my biggest concern with it. Maybe someday I will test out Swirling Tiger and see if I like that. I'll probably use it on another set of dual weapons. And if I really like that, excuse me, I might form this stance mod. But until then, sadly, I'm going to stick with my Broken War. Of course, just because you're going to want to be able to pull in as much energy as possible, since you're going to have World on Fire on constantly, I definitely recommend going with a carrier or carrier prime if you have it. And honestly, that's about it. Ember and Ember Prime, definitely an amazing Warframe that I definitely recommend picking up, and it's quickly becoming my favorite to use just in general, as it's really easy to get a massive amount of kills, as well as synergizes oddly really well as a melee fighter. I'm kind of curious to try out using a pure fire weapon, such as the fucking burning shield and sword thing, you know, anything like that. Definitely try her out, and I definitely recommend trying to use her in melee. It's a lot of fun. So like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, peace.